The ship came out of hyperspace with a soft hum. Captain Park Doan stood at the center of the bridge with his hands behind his back. He watched the stars appear on the main screen. They were beautiful, like tiny diamonds floating in an endless ocean of black. But Doan was not here to look at stars. He was here for something much more dangerous. "We have arrived at the Velker border, Captain," said Lieutenant Yunhana from her station. Her voice was calm and steady. She had served with Doan for 7 years. She knew him better than anyone on this ship. The ESV Taigok was a small vessel. It was built for speed and stealth, not for battle. At least, that is what everyone believed. The ship carried only 12 crew members. Compared to the massive warships of other species, it looked like a toy floating in space. "Any contacts?" Doan asked Doteho, the weapons specialist, checked his screens. His fingers moved quickly over the controls. "Nothing yet, sir. But I am picking up some energy readings ahead. They are faint, but they are there." Doan nodded slowly. He expected this. The Velker Empire controlled this region of space. They were one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. They had conquered more than 200 worlds. Their fleet was legendary. Their warriors were brutal, and they hated humans. For years, the Velker had watched Earth grow stronger. They did not like it. They saw humans as insects, weak, soft, unworthy of respect. When Earth asked for permission to travel through Velker space, the Empire agreed to meet. But Doan knew this was not going to be a friendly conversation. Captain Beek Somi called from the engineering station. She was the chief engineer, a brilliant woman who could fix anything. "I am reading multiple hyperspace signatures. Something big is coming." Before Dohan could respond, the space around them exploded with light. Ships appeared from every direction. They came out of hyperspace like monsters rising from the deep. 1, 5, 10, 20. They kept coming. Massive warships with weapons pointed directly at the Teg UK. Hannah counted them quickly. 47 ships, Captain. All Velker military class. They have us completely surrounded. The bridge went silent. Every crew member felt the weight of the moment. 47 warships against one small scout vessel. The numbers were impossible, but Captain Doan did not move. He did not panic. He simply looked at the enemy fleet with calm eyes. "Open a channel," he said. Hannah pressed the button. "Channel open, sir." A moment later, a face appeared on the main screen. It was Commander Droven of the Velker Empire. His skin was gray and rough like stone. His eyes were yellow with thin black slits for pupils. When he smiled, his sharp teeth glinted in the light of his bridge. "So," Droven said in a deep rumbling voice, "the humans have finally arrived. I must say, I expected something more impressive. Is this truly all Earth could send? One little ship?" Behind Droven, his officers laughed. Their voices were harsh and cruel. Doan remained calm. "Commander Droven, we are here as requested. Earth seeks peaceful passage through Velker space. We have no desire for conflict." Droven leaned forward. His smile disappeared. Peaceful passage. How interesting. But you see, Captain, nothing in this universe is free. If Earth wants to use Velker space, Earth must pay a price. "What price?" Doan asked. "Your colonies in the outer reach? All of them? You will surrender them to the Velker Empire. You will withdraw all human presence from those systems. In return, we will allow your ships to pass through our territory without being destroyed." The demand was outrageous. The outer reach colonies held millions of human lives. They had been built over decades of hard work. Surrendering them was not an option. "That is not acceptable," Doan said firmly. "Earth will not abandon its people." Droven laughed again. This time, his whole bridge joined him. The sound echoed through the communication channel like thunder. "Not acceptable?" Droven repeated. "Look around you, human. You are one ship. I have 47. Your vessel is smaller than my shuttle bay. What exactly do you think you can do against us?" Doan did not answer immediately. He turned and looked at his crew. They looked back at him. There was no fear in their eyes, only trust. "Commander Dohan said finally, I am going to ask you one more time. Let us pass in peace. We do not wish to fight." Drovin's expression changed. He looked almost confused by the human's calm attitude. Then the confusion turned to anger. "You dare to threaten me? A single Earth ship against the might of the Velker fleet. You are either very brave or very stupid, Captain." "Perhaps both," Doan replied quietly. Across the galaxy, other species were watching. The Velker had made sure to broadcast this moment on open channels. They wanted everyone to see the weakness of humanity. They wanted the galaxy to witness Earth's humiliation. On a dozen different worlds, alien leaders watched the tiny human ship surrounded by the massive Velker fleet. They shook their heads. Some felt pity. Others felt nothing at all. Humans were new to the galactic stage. They would learn their place soon enough. Commander Drovin raised his hand. His weapons officers prepared to fire. "Let this be a lesson to all who defy the Velker Empire," Drovin announced. "Today the galaxy will see what happens to those who do not know their place." Captain Doan took a deep breath. He looked at Lieutenant Hannah and gave her a small nod. "Send the signal," he said softly. Hannah pressed a single button, and deep within the Taigok, something began to wake up. Something the Velker had never seen before. Something that would change everything. The laughter on the Velker bridge continued. They had no idea what was coming. They had no idea that in just a few moments, their entire world would be turned upside down, because the Taigok was not just a scout ship. It never was. The Velker fleet hung in space like a wall of death. Their ships were beautiful in a terrifying way. Dark metal hulls covered with glowing red lines of power. Weapons that could tear through planets. Shields strong enough to stop almost anything. And in the middle of it all, the Taigok floated alone, small silver dot surrounded by giants. On the Velker flagship, Commander Drovin watched the human vessel with amusement. He had conquered many worlds in his long career. He had crushed rebellions and destroyed fleets. But this moment felt special. This was not just a battle. This was a message to the entire galaxy. "Open all channels," Drovin ordered. "I want everyone to see this." His communications officer obeyed. Within seconds, the broadcast was spreading across the sector. Dozens of alien species were now watching. This was the entertainment Drovin wanted. The humiliation of humanity, witnessed by all. "Look at them," Drovin said to his bridge crew. One tiny ship, 12 crew members. They dare to refuse the Velker Empire. He laughed, and his officers laughed with him. I almost admire their stupidity. On the Taigok, the crew heard everything. The open channel carried every mocking word, every cruel laugh. Lieutenant Hannah kept her face neutral, but her hands were tight on her console. "They are enjoying this," she said quietly. "Let them," Captain Doan replied. He had not moved from his position at the center of the bridge. His eyes were fixed on the main screen, watching the enemy fleet. Overconfidence is a gift we can use. Kung Tai-Ho checked his weapon systems for the 100th time. Everything was ready. The hammer was fully charged and waiting, but he knew they would only get one chance. If this failed, they would all die. Captain Beek Somi reported from engineering. "I am reading 17 more ships moving to surround us. They are cutting off all possible escape routes." Doan nodded slowly. "They want to make sure we cannot run." "Sir," Hannah said carefully, "our shields can take maybe 3 direct hits from their plasma cannons. After that, did not need to finish the sentence." Doan understood. By all normal measurements, they were already dead. The Velker had the numbers. They had the firepower. They had every advantage. But the Velker did not know what the Taigok really was. 3 years ago, Earth's scientists made an incredible discovery. While studying captured Velker technology, they found a weakness. A small flaw in the way Velker shields processed energy was almost invisible. Most species would never notice it. But humans were very good at finding weaknesses. The flaw was simple. Velker shields were designed to absorb energy attacks and redirect them safely away from the ship. But if you sent a very specific type of electromagnetic pulse at the right frequency, something strange happened. The shields did not block it. They amplified it. The pulse would ride the shield energy directly into the ship's power core. Project Hammer was born from this discovery, a weapon that looked simple from the outside but carried the power to disable an entire fleet in seconds. The Taigok was chosen for this mission because of its size. A small ship would not seem threatening. The Velker would never suspect it carried something so dangerous. Everything depended on the enemy underestimating them, and the Velker were definitely underestimating them. Captain Taiho said quietly, "The hammer is at full power. Ready on your command?" Doan looked at his weapons specialist. "Hold position, we wait for them to fire first." "Sir, I want the galaxy to see who started this fight. When historians write about this day, I want them to know that Earth asked for peace. The Velker chose war." On the enemy flagship, Commander Droven was growing impatient. The human captain's calm attitude was starting to annoy him. Why was this man not begging for mercy? Why was he not trying to escape? "Enough games," Droven growled. "All ships, charge weapons. Let us end this foolishness." Across the Velker fleet, weapons began to glow with deadly energy. Plasma cannons hummed to life. Missile bays opened. The full might of 47 warships prepared to fire on a single target. Droven leaned forward in his chair. This would be the moment of his greatest triumph. The moment when humanity learned its true place in the galaxy. "Human captain," he said over the open channel, "you had your chance. Now you will watch your ship burn." "Any last words?" Captain Dohan was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice calm and clear. "Commander Droven, I offered you peace. I offered you a chance to avoid bloodshed. You laughed at us. You mocked us. You threatened our homes and our families." He paused. "I am going to give you one final warning. Withdraw your fleet now. Power down your weapons. Do this, and no one needs to die today." The Velker bridge exploded with laughter again. Some officers were laughing so hard they could barely breathe. Droven shook his head in disbelief. "You are warning us?" "A single scout ship is warning the greatest fleet in the quadrant." He spread his arms wide. "I have never met a braver fool. Fire all weapons. Destroy them." The command was given. 47 ships began their attack sequence. On the Taigok, Taiho watched his screen with intense focus. The moment Velker weapon systems reached full power, he would act. "Weapons charging," Hannah reported. "They are about to fire." Captain Doan looked at his crew one final time. These were good people. Brave people. They had trained for this moment for months. They knew the risks. They accepted them. Taiho Doan said quietly, "Yes, Captain. Light them up." Taiho smiled. His finger pressed the button, and the hammer fell. The pulse was invisible to the naked eye. It moved outward from the Taigok like a wave spreading across a pond. Silent, fast, unstoppable. On the Velker flagship. Commander Droven saw nothing unusual at first. His weapons were charging. His crew was ready. Victory was moments away. Then everything went wrong. The pulse hit the Velker. Shields exactly as Earth scientists had predicted. The shield harmonics tried to process the strange energy. They could not block it. Instead, they pulled it inward like a hungry beast swallowing poison. The energy cascaded through the flagship systems. Power lines overloaded. Computer cores burned out. The main reactor, the heart of the ship, received a surge of energy so powerful that it simply shut down to protect itself. In 2.7 seconds, the most advanced warship in the Velker fleet became a floating piece of metal, and it was not alone. Across the entire fleet, the same thing happened. Ship after ship went dark. Lights flickered once and died. Engines stopped humming. Weapons powered down. Shield generators cracked and broke. The glowing red lines on their hulls faded to black dot 40-7 warships. The pride of the Velker Empire. Disabled in less than 3 seconds. On the flagship bridge, emergency lights struggled to come on. They flickered weakly, casting strange shadows across the room. Commander Droven stood frozen at his command chair. He could not understand what had happened. Report. He shouted into the darkness, "Someone give me a report." His officers scrambled at their dead consoles. Nothing responded. Screens were blank. Communications were down. Even the simple door controls had stopped working.
Ow!
"Sir, we have lost all power," one officer said, his voice shaking. "Main reactor is offline. Backup systems are not responding. We have nothing. That is impossible," Droven roared. "Check again." But it was not impossible. It was real. The mighty Velker fleet was now nothing more than 47 tombs drifting through space on the Taigok. The bridge was completely silent. Everyone stared at the main screen. They watched as ship after ship went dark. Red lights fading. Movement stopping. Life disappearing. Lieutenant Hannah spoke first. Her voice was barely a whisper. "It worked. It worked," Taiho repeated, almost unable to believe his own words. He looked down at his hands. Those hands had just disabled the most powerful fleet in the sector with a single button press, Captain. Goen allowed himself a small breath of relief. The plan had worked perfectly. The Velker shields had done exactly what Earth's scientists said they would do. They had amplified the pulse and destroyed themselves. But he did not celebrate. There was no joy on his face. Only determination. "What is the status of the Velker ships?" he asked. Somi checked her readings. "All 47 vessels are completely disabled, Captain. No weapons. No engines. No shields. They are dead in the water." She paused, looking at more data. "Life support is still functioning on backup power, but it will not last long. Maybe 6 hours at most." Doan nodded. 6 hours. That was enough time. Sir Hannah said slowly, "They cannot fight back. They cannot move. They cannot even call for help. We could destroy them all right now if we wanted." Everyone on the bridge knew what she was really asking. Should they finish the job? The Velker had threatened Earth. They had demanded surrender. They had planned to kill them all. Would it not be fair to return the favor? Doan was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the helpless fleet floating in the darkness of space. Inside those ships were thousands of Velker soldiers. Yes, they were the enemy. Yes, they had laughed at the Taigok and mocked humanity. But they were also living beings. "No," Doan said finally. "We will not fire on them." Taiho looked confused. "Captain, they would have killed us without a second thought." "I know," Doan replied. "And that is exactly why we will not do the same to them." He turned to face his crew. "We are not here for revenge. We are not here to prove that humans can be just as cruel as anyone else. We are here to send a message." "What message?" Hannah asked. Doan looked back at the screen. The dead fleet floated silently, waiting for a killing blow that would never come. "The message is simple. Do not underestimate Earth. Do not threaten our people. Do not assume that being peaceful means being weak." His voice grew stronger. "But more than that, the message is about who we are. We had the power to destroy them completely. We chose mercy instead. Let the galaxy see that and understand what it means." On the Velker flagship, Commander Droven was in a state of shock. He had walked through his dead ship, seeing the destruction everywhere. His crew sat at useless stations. His officers looked at him with hollow eyes. The laughter from minutes ago was gone. Now there was only fear. A crackling sound came from the emergency speaker. Someone was broadcasting on the backup audio channel. "Commander Droven." It was the human captain's voice. Droven rushed to the speaker. He pressed the response button with trembling fingers. "What have you done to us?" he demanded. "What kind of weapon was that?" There was a pause before the answer came. "I offered you peace, Commander. I gave you every chance to walk away. You chose to fire on us instead. This is the consequence of that choice." Droven's mind raced. His fleet was disabled. His ships were dying. He had no options left. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice much softer now. The arrogance was gone. "Are you here to destroy us?" "No," Captain Doan replied. "We are going to help you." Droven could not believe what he was hearing. "Help us? After what we tried to do to you?" "Yes, because that is who we are." The communication ended. Droven stood alone in the darkness of his bridge, surrounded by the ruins of his mighty fleet. He had never felt so small in his entire life, and somewhere in the back of his mind, a terrible thought began to form. If this was what one human ship could do, what could 1,000 of them do? The Taigok moved slowly through the graveyard of ships. Its engines hummed softly as it passed the massive Velker warships. They were dark now, like sleeping giants that would never wake up. Some of them drifted into each other, their hulls scraping together in the silence of space. Captain Park Doan stood at the observation window, watching the fleet he had defeated. There was no pride in his eyes, no satisfaction, only the heavy weight of responsibility. Behind him, his crew worked quickly. Lieutenant Yoon Hanna was preparing the broadcast. Kong Taiho monitored the disabled ships for any signs of power recovery. Beek Somi calculated exactly how long each vessel had before its life support failed completely. Captain Somi reported, "The flagship has approximately 5 hours and 40 minutes of emergency air remaining. The smaller ships have less. Some of them are already running low." Doan nodded. "Prepare the emergency repair instructions. We will send them the information they need to restore basic life support." Taiho looked up from his station. "Sir, are you sure about this? They wanted to kill us. They wanted to take our colonies. Why should we save them?" It was a fair question. Many people would have asked the same thing. The Velker had shown no mercy to their enemies in the past. They had conquered worlds without care. They had enslaved species. They had destroyed anyone who stood in their way. But Doan had thought about this moment for a long time. He knew exactly what kind of message Earth needed to send. "Because we are better than they think we are," he said quietly. "Because showing mercy when you have the power to destroy makes a stronger statement than any weapon ever could." He turned to look at his crew. "The galaxy is watching us right now. Every species who thought humans were weak is paying attention. What they see today will shape how they treat Earth for generations to come." Hannah finished her preparations. "Broadcast is ready, Captain. Open channel to all frequencies in the sector." Doan walked to the center of the bridge. He straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define humanity in the eyes of the galaxy. "Open the channel," he ordered. The broadcast began. "This is Captain Park Doan of the Earth vessel Taigok. I am speaking to all who are listening. To the Velker Empire. To the species who witnessed this battle. To anyone who has ever looked at humanity and seen nothing worth respecting." His voice was calm but filled with quiet strength. "Today, the Velker Empire threatened Earth. They demanded we surrender our colonies. They demanded we give up our people. When we refused, they laughed at us. They mocked our ship. They were certain of their victory." Paused, letting the words sink in. That certainty cost them their entire fleet. 47 warships disabled in less than 3 seconds. Not by a mighty armada, but by a single Earth vessel that they called weak. Across the sector, billions of beings watched in stunned silence. On the Kiravan homeworld, military leaders immediately began reviewing all intelligence on human technology. The Fennec Trade Alliance called an emergency meeting to discuss new relations with Earth. Even the isolationist Yutani clans, who rarely cared about other species, paid attention. Dohan continued. "We did not come here seeking war. We came seeking peace. That offer still stands. Earth does not wish to conquer anyone. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We only want to live freely and protect our people." His voice grew harder now. "But let this be absolutely clear. If any species threatens our worlds, attacks our people, or tries to subjugate humanity, they will face consequences. We will not start fights, but we will finish them. And as the Velker have learned today, we are very good at finishing them." On the Velker flagship, Commander Droven listened to every word. He sat in his captain's chair, surrounded by darkness. The human's voice came through the weak, emergency speakers like a ghost. Droven had spent his entire career believing in Velker's superiority. He had been taught that his species was stronger, smarter, and more advanced than all others. He had laughed at the idea of humans being a threat. Now he sat in a dead ship, listening to the human captain speak to the galaxy, and he understood how wrong he had been. Finally, Doan's broadcast continued. I want to address the Velker directly. Your fleet is disabled, but not destroyed. Your people are still alive. We are transmitting emergency repair instructions that will allow you to restore life support and basic systems. Use them. Save your crews. This news caused confusion across the galaxy. The humans were helping their enemies. After such a devastating attack, they were offering assistance. It made no sense to many watching, but to others, it made perfect sense. It was the most powerful statement of all. Duhan finished his message. Earth extends its hand in peace to all who would accept it. We hope that today's events will lead to better understanding and cooperation between our species. But make no mistake, that hand holds a sword and we know how to use it. Taigok out. The broadcast ended. Silence filled the bridge. Then, slowly, Hannah began transmitting the repair instructions to the Velker ships. The data packages contained everything they needed to restart basic life support and emergency power. Taiho. Watch the information flow outward. They do not deserve this, he said softly. Perhaps not, Doan agreed. But deserving has nothing to do with it. This is about who we choose to be. An hour later, the first Velker ship successfully restored life support. Then another. Then another. One by one, the fleet came back to minimal function. They could not fight. They could not fly. But they could breathe. On the flagship, Commander Droven used the restored communications to contact Captain Doan directly. Human, he said, his voice rough and tired. Why did you save us? Doan's answer was simple. Because dead enemies cannot sign peace treaties, and dead enemies cannot tell others what they witnessed today. Droven was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke again. I have made many mistakes in my life. Today might be my greatest. I underestimated you. I underestimated your entire species. He paused. I do not know if my empire will listen to me after this failure, but I will tell them what I saw. I will tell them that humanity is not to be mocked. That is all I ask, Doan replied. Tell them the truth. Let them decide what to do with it. The communication ended. The Taigok remained in position, watching over the recovering fleet until rescue ships arrived from Velker space. Only then did Captain Doan order a course set for home. The message had been delivered. Now the galaxy would have to respond. 3 weeks had passed since the battle. The galaxy had changed more in those 21 days than it had in the previous 100 years. The news spread like fire through dry grass. A single human ship had defeated 47 Velker warships. Not through luck or surprise, but through technology and careful planning. Species who had never given Earth a second thought were suddenly very interested in humanity. Trade offers arrived daily. Alliance proposals came from every corner of explored space. Everyone wanted to be friends with the species that had humbled the mighty Velker Empire on the neutral station of Corax Prime. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered for a historic event, the signing of the Taigok Accords. Captain Park Doan stood in the Great Hall wearing his formal Earth military uniform. Beside him were Lieutenant Yunhana, Kong Taiho, and Beek Somi. The entire crew of the Taigok had been invited as honored guests. They stood together, watching history unfold around them. The hall was massive. Tall windows showed the stars outside. Flags from every participating species hung from the ceiling. And at the center of everything, a simple table waited for signatures that would reshape the political order of the galaxy. Commander. Droven entered the hall last. He looked different from when Doan had first seen him on the view screen. The arrogance was gone. His movements were slower, more careful. He walked like a man who had learned a painful lesson and was still processing it. The Velker. Commander approached the table where the Earth ambassador waited with the treaty documents. He paused for a moment, looking down at the papers that would end Velker aggression toward humanity forever. Under the Taigok Accords, Earth received full territorial rights to all its current colonies. The Velker would withdraw any claims to human space. Earth would receive a permanent seat on the Galactic Council, giving them a voice in all major decisions affecting the sector. In exchange, Earth agreed to share certain defensive technologies with member species and committed to peaceful resolution of future disputes. It was everything Earth had asked for. Everything the Velker had laughed at just weeks earlier. Drovan signed the treaty. His hand was steady, but his face showed the weight of defeat. When he finished, he set down the writing tool and looked up at the gathered crowd. "It is done," he said simply. The hall erupted in polite applause. Representatives congratulated each other. Diplomats began discussing the implications. History had been made, but Drovan did not join the celebration. Instead, he walked across the hall toward Captain Doan. The crowd parted to let him pass. Everyone wanted to see this meeting. Doan stood his ground as the Velker commander approached. They faced each other in silence. Two warriors who had clashed in battle, now meeting in peace. Captain Drovan said, his voice low enough that only Doan could hear. "I have a question that has bothered me since that day." "Ask it," Doan replied. "How long have your people been preparing for us? How long did you know about the weakness in our shields?" Doan considered the question carefully. There was no reason to lie anymore. The truth was actually more impressive than any deception. "We discovered the flaw in Velker shield technology approximately 3 years ago. We have been preparing ever since." He paused. "Your empire made it very clear that you saw humans as weak. You said it publicly. You said it often. We decided to let you keep believing it." Drovan's eyes widened slightly. "You wanted us to underestimate you. Yes. We knew that one day the Velker would push too hard. We knew you would threaten us and expect us to bow down. So we prepared. We built the weapon. We trained the crew. We waited for the moment you would give us a reason to use it." Drovan shook his head slowly. "I called you fools. I said you were too brave or too stupid to understand your position. I was wrong. You were neither. You were patient. You let us walk into a trap we never saw coming?" "That is correct," Doan said. "And Commander, I need you to understand something important. The weapon we used against your fleet was designed specifically for Velker technology. But we have been studying every species in the galaxy. Every shield system. Every power core. Every weakness. The meaning was clear. If other species thought about attacking Earth, they should know that humans had probably already found a way to defeat them too." Drovan actually smiled. It was a bitter smile, but genuine. "You humans are terrifying. Not because you are cruel. Not because you are aggressive, but because you think ahead. You plan. You prepare. And then you strike with absolute precision." "We prefer peace," Doan said. "We always will. But we are not willing to die for it." The two commanders shook hands. It was an odd gesture between species, but Drovan had seen humans do it and understood the meaning. Respect between equals. Later that evening, the crew of the Taigok gathered in a private room away from the diplomatic ceremonies. They shared drinks and quiet conversation. The weight of their mission was finally lifting. Lieutenant Hannah sat next to Captain Doan by the window. The stars shone bright and clear outside. "Captain," she said softly, "may I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "During the battle, when we were surrounded, when the Velker were about to fire, were you scared?" Doan thought about it honestly. "I was not scared of dying," he said finally. "I was scared of failing. I was scared that the weapon would not work and that Earth would lose its best chance to prove itself. I was scared for you and the crew. But scared for myself? No, I was too busy to be scared." Hannah laughed quietly. "That sounds about right." Across the room, Taiho was telling Somi about his plans for when they returned to Earth. He wanted to visit his family in Busan. He wanted to eat his mother's cooking. Simple things that seemed impossibly precious after what they had experienced. Somi listened and nodded. She had her own plans. She wanted to teach at the academy, to train the next generation of engineers, would build the ships that would carry humanity to the stars. Doan watched his crew with quiet pride. These were the people who had changed the galaxy, not generals or admirals sitting safely at headquarters. Just 12 ordinary people who had done extraordinary things. The next morning, the Taigok left Korax Prime and set course for Earth. The journey would take 3 days. 3 days to think about everything that had happened and everything that was coming. On the final approach to Earth, the crew gathered on the bridge one last time. Their home planet grew larger in the view screen. Blue oceans, white clouds, green countenance, beautiful and alive. We're being hailed by Earth Command, Hannah reported. They want to welcome us home. Doan smiled. Open the channel. Familiar voice came through the speakers. Admiral Kwan, the head of Earth's space forces. Taigak, this is Earth's command. You have done something incredible. The entire planet is grateful. Welcome home, heroes. Dohan responded simply. Thank you, Admiral. But we are not heroes. We are just people who did what needed to be done. Any crew would have done the same. The Admiral laughed warmly. Always modest, Doan. That is what I like about you. Land at Bay 7. There are a lot of people waiting to meet you. The Taigak descended through the atmosphere. Below, millions of people looked up at the sky, waiting to see the ship that had changed everything. And as the small silver vessel touched down on Earth's soil, Captain Park Doan knew one thing for certain. The galaxy had laughed at humanity once. They would never laugh again.